Book's 27, Ant's 22, and doing this. You know, that in and of itself is why a lot of people want to jump on the Anthony Edwards train, and rightfully so. His potential is through the roof right now. I mean, how many times throughout Devin's career did we talk about he did this, he did X, Y, and Z this season, but he needed to add A, B, and C. And then the next season, he was doing A, B, C, X, Y, and Z, right? And then we did that every single offseason. It was like Devin was adding something to his bag. If Ant does the exact same thing, he's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
He's going to be incredible.
Yeah, it's a big if, though.
Why don't we go ahead and start with this tweet that Bill Simmons sent out during the series, okay? Bill Simmons tweeted, underrated subplot from the series, and is absolutely and unequivocally took the Team USA starting 2-guard spot from Devin Booker.
Yes, and ever since then, it's been a cascade of opinions about Ant snatching the title, snatching the throne. And I'm kind of torn on this one because I do think I'm in a position where I don't think we should forget what Book has done in the playoffs over the last few years. The fact that he's been to a finals and Ant has yet to get there, and he could very well get there this year. I'm not going to act like it's out of the realm of possibility here. But I do think people are very quick to forget who Devin Booker is, the fact that statistically he had a better season on a worse team, so I get that. But I will also say I find it harder to stand my ground on this argument at this point in time because of what Ant is doing at age 22, because of the fact that it's a what have you done for me lately league, which sucks because last year Devin Booker had one of the best individual playoff performances runs we've seen in NBA history with the way that he went off. But I will say that what Ant is doing on both ends right now is absolutely special, and I don't fault people for putting Ant ahead of Book at this juncture. I would put Book number one in that conversation, but I do think it's a lot closer than it was even a year ago, and I would find it hard to argue with people that have Ant number one right now. I just would, just because of what they're doing on both ends, what he's capable of, and the fact that he's doing it at 22, which you could argue maybe Book would be doing similar things if he had a better supporting cast around him earlier in his career. But we can only judge based off of what we have in front of us. And I do think like Ant has at least narrowed the gap, if not taken that title. And I don't fault people for going that way right now.
Yeah, this is
It's
man,
recency. A lot of it's recency.
This is selective amnesia at its max. Now listen, first things first. Anthony Edwards is phenomenal. Terrific. He's going to be one of the best, if not the best, 2-guard in basketball at some point in the near future, right? Because that's the way it works, right? Devin's 27, he's 22. As Devin gets older, of course, Anthony Edwards should easily glide into that position. Here's my problem with it, is what you said. We're going to ignore all the other things that Devin Booker has just done. Like, let's not act like this was done 10 years ago. This guy is doing all this stuff right in front of our eyes. All NBA first team just a couple years ago. Regular season numbers, Book's numbers are better. They played a series. Ant's doing well. I keep hearing he took the title. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, is this a boxing match? Like, is this how we doing this? Like, you have a good playoff run and the title of best 2-guard in basketball is yours? Talk to me if they get to the NBA Finals or they win a final. Entirely different conversation. But I just think there's so much more Ant has to do to be able to say, yeah, he's the best 2-guard in basketball. And here's another thing. I hate to single him out. Who's the best point guard in basketball? Why are we sticking the Book here? Who's the best point guard? Is Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, if he plays for Canada, but if he were like on Team USA, would we be saying, oh, Steph Curry ain't the best guard in basketball no more, it's Shea? Like, what are we doing? Why are we singling out Book here?
I think that the conversation would be had.
So guess what? Karl Anthony Towns better than Joker because he's dominating them right now.
Well, the conversation around Book is because it's here.
Why?
It's here.
Well, I get that. No, but it ain't here with Bill Simmons. Bill Simmons ain't here. He started the conversation. Okay. Like, that's what I'm saying. This is starting from people in a whole different place. And I just think it's ridiculous. First and foremost, I hope Anthony Edwards is the best two guard in basketball. That's what you're supposed to want. Like, you're supposed to want these young players to elevate and become great and eventually take that spot. But damn, if y'all are, it just seems crazy how quickly we forget that 27-year-old Devin Booker has done so much. By the way, won a gold medal, was a starting guard on the last gold medal team. So forget that. Throw that out the window.
So I think a lot of it probably stemmed from the start of that, both of them being on Team USA. Then the series also added fuel to the fire. And this is just what we do around sports. We have these arguments of who is the GOAT or who is the best this, start, bench, cut. You know what I mean? Like, that's just what we do. So it's a natural, I feel like, conversation to be had. Do I want to have the conversation? No. But is it a natural conversation to get brought up during offseason after Anthony Edwards' team did what they did to Devin Booker's team? 100%. Also, joining us now in place of Ball Bookman is Saul Bookman. Saul, where do you stand on this?
I just think it's funny. My only beef with it is not the fact that we're having this conversation, but if you notice, a lot of the people that are saying Ant has now officially taken the title are the same people that disregarded Book in the first place, and now they've used Ant as an excuse to dog out Book in the first place. And I don't like that. Like, either you think Devin Booker was the best two guard in the game at a certain point, or you didn't. And if you didn't, then don't sit there and use the argument that Ant is better than Book if you never thought Book was the best anyway. So it's like they waited until they found somebody else to overcome Book so they can throw Book in the conversation to dog him out. And I don't like that. Like, that's my beef with this whole situation. Is like the same people that I see across social media, like, Book ain't shit, Book this, Book this, Book this. And then Ant came along, they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna throw Book in here so I can dog him out one more time. And I do not like that whatsoever. Book was clearly the best two guard in the game at a certain point. You can make the argument that this year in this particular playoff, Ant is having a better run than Book because Book is no longer playing. Cool, I'm fine with that. But to talk about longevity, to talk about, what Book has had to do really essentially this year in playing point Book and a two guard position, trying to figure it all out, and and that's complex in itself, while still maintaining a 27-point average, still maintaining the stats that he does, despite basically playing out of position for a portion of the season. I don't think it's a clear case that Ant is better than Book. I just don't. I think Book has still got a little bit of an edge over Ant. And if Ant gets to the NBA Finals and he keeps on this run, then maybe I'll change my tune. Just like I changed my tune about the Minnesota Timberwolves because I thought they didn't have a chance, and they are kicking everybody's ass, and I owe everybody in Minnesota an apology, including my guy, Base Jiren. I was completely wrong, but hey, yeah, the due is there. Ant he has to do more in the playoffs in order to take that title. He's gotten through 1.5 rounds at a high level. I need to see more before I start to take that crown off.
So I think a lot of this whole nod to Ant situation is coming from his potential, right? Book's 27, Ant's 22 and doing this. That in and of itself is why a lot of people want to jump on the Anthony Edwards train, and rightfully so. His potential is through the roof right now. I mean, how many times throughout Devin's career did we talk about he did this, he did X, Y, and Z this season, but he needed to add A, B, and C. And then the next season, he was doing A, B, C, X, Y, and Z, right? And then we did that every single offseason. It was like Devin was adding something to his bag. If Ant does the exact same thing, he's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
He's going to be incredible.
That's a big if, though.
But that's the thing, is a lot of it is hanging on the potential of what Ant could be, and I get that.
Well, and let's look at that, because we have a stat that compares Book's first playoff run during the finals with Ant's current run now. And the reason I chose these 2 years specifically is because A, this was the most team success that Book enjoyed in the playoffs, and B, it was when they were closest in age. Ant is obviously 22. This was Devin Booker's age 24 season. So you look at the numbers, Book put up 27 points, just under 6 assists, 4.5 rebounds, shot 45%, 32% from three. The Suns went 14-8 in the playoffs. Ant right now is putting up, again, this is a smaller sample size because it's only 6 games so far for the Timberwolves, but put up 32 points a game, 6 assists, 7 boards, almost 2 steals, shot 55%, about 42% from 3. Timberwolves have yet to lose. They're 6-0. So I think you can, like, what Ant is doing right now at this age,
keep that up, Eric,
is not something that Book did when he was a comparable age. And that's not to diminish Devin Booker's numbers. And I think there's a fact to be made. Like, the Timberwolves still have to reach the finals, so that this comparison holds true in multiple facets here. But I think it's a combination of two things. I think it's to what Saul alluded to in terms of, like, yes, people kind of begrudgingly gave Devin Booker the title of best 2 guard because in their minds there was no one else other than, like, Donovan Mitchell that was in that conversation. So they're like, yeah, Devin Booker's the best 2 guard. As soon as someone else comes along, we're going to gravitate to that person. Mm-hmm. And the fact that Anthony Edwards is a basketball player that is so easy to gravitate to, I think has enhanced this conversation, because we can't deny Ant is having a moment right now. Mm-hmm. Like, not just offensively, not just, the 40-point performances he's putting up right now, the shit talking Kevin Durant, all of that fun stuff, like the post-game interviews with him and Kat. Like, it's very hard to dislike the guy right now, because what he's doing mentality-wise, people are comparing it to Kobe. They're comparing it to D-Wade. They're comparing it to Michael Jordan. Like, he is a superstar that's easy to gravitate to. And as we know here in the Valley, people have never felt that way about Devin Booker for a variety of reasons, partially because they were wrong about him and don't want to admit it and have held that grudge ever since. But I think it's the combination of, like, we love Ant. Ant is having a moment. He deserves some recognition, but also, like, Book had this title, but we kind of just gave it to him by default. We didn't really want to give it to him, and people feeling a certain type of way about Book.
So Priscilla brings up a good point too, and I think it adds on to what you're saying here a little bit. Ant also is more fun to watch. She said, again, I love Book. I would only buy his jersey, but Ant is the new face of the league. He's the complete package. Can't even imagine how insane his peak will be. This is the same conversation we had around John Morant and Book, right? The flashiness, the being like such an extrovert, and the extra stuff that comes with just being a quote unquote personality. Mm-hmm. And that's not who Book is. And we don't fault him for that, but a lot of people do. Mm-hmm. A lot of people do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I struggle with this. I really do. This is such prisoner of the moment stuff. I mean, he's played 6 playoff games this year, man.
But he's been exciting for more.
No, he has. But I mean, before this playoff started, they had a whole season of play, and we did too. Show those numbers. Mm-hmm. Book has significantly better numbers. Book's a top 10 scorer and assist guy in the league. Anthony Edwards is not that. Percentage-wise, he shoots 54 on that shit. Show the regular season shooting percentage. It's matter of fact, take those numbers from Book and take away the entirety of the playoff run and just show Book's first 6 games, where he dropped 43 times and 46 on LeBron in the closeout game in LA. Like, we've seen this already. I've seen this before. Like, it's easy to just sit here and chop through 6 games and be like, okay, the title is his. To me, that's disappointing.
Well, let's take a look at last year's numbers, because to your point, people have forgotten very quickly what Book is capable of. I pulled up his Ants numbers through the 6 playoff games compared to Book's incredible run last year in the playoffs. Book put up almost 34 points, 7 assists, 5 boards, just under 2 steals, shot 58.5% overall and just under 51% from 3. Suns obviously going 6-5 in those 2 rounds of the playoffs. And then you look at Ant's numbers, 32, 6, 7, just under 2 steals. Really great efficiency, not the otherworldly numbers that Book put up. And yes, people are going to point to the difference in record, the difference in team dominance. But I would argue, like, as great as Anthony Edwards has been, he has been great because he has an incredible defense behind him, because he's got the defensive player of the year, because he's got Jaden McDaniels, because he's got dudes like Naz Reid and Nickeil Alexander-Walker hitting back-breaking threes at every, turn. I do think, like, last year we saw Devin Booker and Kevin Durant against the world, and it was incredible. And I think people forgot about that because when you don't have the team success, it's easy to just ignore it or dismiss it or forget about it, underplay it. But I don't think we should forget that quickly what Devin Booker is capable of, and especially what he's capable of if you put the right pieces around him.